Hi guys and welcome. This is an unfortunately unplanned video, but hopefully one that will be of interest to some people. This, in this nice little leather folder, is my Amazon Kindle. I love my Kindle. I love to read. I've had this for a long time. Anybody who knows Kindles will see this is a Generation 3 keyboard, non-touchy touch screen. But as you can see, it has got a broken screen. Now, unfortunately, this occurred recently while on holiday. I don't know how exactly, but I was on a coach trip with my brother, and getting on the coach to come back, I took out my Kindle, I switched it on to see this lovely crazed pattern on the screen that you can see there. And then obviously there's a big line down there and a big line across there, so it indicates that the screen underneath this covering here is apparently cracked. Shenzhen, China to the rescue in this lovely, sturdy, very quickly posted polystyrene packed box wrapped in several layers of bubble wrap. We have, do this very carefully, a brand new Kindle keyboard screen, which is incredibly thin, so I'm trying to handle this very carefully. Incredibly thin, with your stock Kindle covered there, and you can see I'm not going to handle this too much until we actually need to put it in, because I do not most definitely want to drop and crack this. And the replacement screen was £20, just under, which is cheaper than a replacement Kindle, which is currently about £70 for the cheapest model that they do. I'm just going to show you a dramatic reenactment of the events as they unfolded on the coach. The following scenes may be disturbing for some viewers of a nervous disposition, or book lovers in general, you know. Yeah, so that was a really cool day out, wasn't it? Yeah, great. Anyway, right, back on the coach, nice and comfortable. I'm going to sit back, relax, with my takeaway coffee. I'm going to sit here and read my book and... Wait. What? No! So here's a close-up of the Kindle. You can see the screen a little better there, and if I just power that on, you can see where the problem is. You've got this portion here that's cracked. Let's try and get that into focus for you so you can actually see it better. As you can see there, you've got this portion here that's cracked, and you've got a band right across there that's got no information whatsoever. The very first thing we need to do is to remove the back cover, which involves getting in under here with some kind of tool and levering this back slightly rubberized textured cover away. These aren't designed to be easily removable for purposes of battery changing and the like. Let me focus back in on that, because I've just realized that's probably blurry. So although you can change the batteries on these, it's not a straightforward pop the cover off and swap the battery, so it's likewise getting into these, there's a little bit of a routine to it. So we're going to start by removing this back cover, and I need to find myself a plastic tool that I can fiddle in there and start popping this back cover off. Here we've got the back cover partly removed. It's I'll not lie to you and say it's easy, because it's not. The ideal tool, which I don't have unfortunately, I'm using this, which is a little just a little strip of plastic. If you have a guitar pick, or know somebody who plays guitar, or you play guitar yourself, or even if you've just got a shop locally where you can grab a guitar pick, that would be a good tool. A couple of them even better, and just kind of wiggle them away. Hopefully you can see you've got two clips there and there just above the buttons, two clips there and there above the buttons, and then one on each corner, one just around the charging port on the bottom, and then one just in between the volume up down button and the jack plug for your earphones on the bottom. And then on the top you've got 4 sort of evenly spaced across, plus one on each corner. The ones that are slightly tricky and it kind of feels like you're going to break something as you're trying to wiggle it away are just behind your buttons down here. It's probably going to be hard to see, but just behind your page turning buttons here, you've got a clip or 2 clips there which lock into little slots up here, which again is going to be hard to see. I'll kind of show you that clearer when we get that off. So what I've just discovered is the easiest way when you get to those bits, rather than trying to just lever them straight up, if you can sort of lift that up as you push in like that, it will pop up and away like so. You can see that a bit clearer there. You've got these bits here and these bits here, and they clip into these little plastic tags where my thumbnail is, there and there. There you can see the battery, which is a 1750 milliamp hour 3.7 volt. This battery is the original one that came with this Kindle. It's still going strong, although I have heard of people having to change the battery. So obviously, while you've got the back off, if a battery change is something you need to do, this is the perfect time to do it. So that's the removal of the back, which is probably going to be the hardest part of the whole process. Just take it nice and steady. If you feel like you're going to break something, just wiggle your way around, try a different area first. Just here you've got a spring which is kind of loosely fitted, as you can see there, and that is for your sliding power switch, which allows it to return. So be careful that that doesn't fly off, and you don't want to lose that. I don't know how securely it's fitted in, but it looks like it could pop off, so do be careful with that one. It looks like I'm going to have to remove the whole lot, unscrew everything, and literally unplug and lift everything out to get to the screen. You will need a crosshead screwdriver, something like this, which is a little dedicated electronic one that I use for lots of electronic bits, or alternatively, excuse me, knocking things, something like a small screwdriver kit like this, which will contain a selection of crosshead and flathead screwdrivers, which are ideal for little projects like this. However, in this case, as I say, I'm going to be using this one here, and the battery is held in with 2 screws. Which you take out there, and then it simply lifts up and slots out, and that's your battery. And obviously you would get your replacement battery, which would come looking like that. You'd just pop that back in and replace it. These are washers which are loose, incidentally, so be careful. I'll just kind of lift one away to show you. So be careful that you don't pop those off and lose them. These are tiny little aluminium washers, and you will need to pop those aside somewhere safe along with the battery and the screws for it. So the next thing to do after we've removed the battery with the 2 screws there is to remove the screws for well, pretty much every screw that's on here. So I'm going to start with the speaker assembly up at the top, the screws in here, and also the Wi-Fi unit, which is here, and the little clip. And worth noting, you've got a little coiled wire that goes down here to a small white plug, which is your speaker wire and needs unplugging from the board. This bit down here that I've just removed and this bit up here that I've just unscrewed are where the metal tangs of the standard case holder clip in, and this is where it provides the power for the LED reading light which pops out up here. And it appears a little washer there which I need to put up there. It appears, looking at that, I've removed all the large silver headed screws, so the next step is going to be to unhook the connection cables. And as you can see, these are just pop-off type connectors. They either lift up like this one, or they just pop straight out like this one. You do have to be fairly careful. Use something like a piece of wood or a plastic tool for these. You may need to use a fingernail if you have a suitable fingernail. There we go. So having carefully checked through to make sure that I've got all of the screws removed. So I've got all the black-headed screws there, which are all the same size, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 of those. And then we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 of the silver-headed screws, plus the 2 individual ones for the battery over here. The whole unit wiggles free, and then you can lift that away, and you can indeed see that the screen is cracked very, very badly. I have no idea exactly how that happened, but I have a suspicion that it was because it was in the pocket of my hoodie, the front pocket, which I'd got tied around my waist, so it was a really hot day. And at one point, after just being on the beach, because I'd gone on a coast trip with my brother on the coach, and I came off the beach to dry my feet, brush the sand off, and put my boots back on. And I sat on a bench that was slatted. As I sat down, I actually felt the Kindle sort of drop between the bench slats and just catch it very slightly. I didn't think it was that bad, but obviously during the course of that, it's caught it and it's flexed this very thin screen and cracked it, which is surprising because I've had this for years. I've dropped it 2 or 3 times and all manner of things. So it's, for something so thin and fragile looking, it is surprisingly tough. But yes, as I say, it's definitely cracked, as you can see. That's the keyboard, which is on a rubber flexi pad, which I'm not going to do anything with. I was actually wondering whether I'd need to clean this internally, but it's actually looking pretty good, so I don't think I will have to. The new one obviously doesn't have these metal tabs that you see here. I wonder if that's bonded in somehow. Ah, yes. Yeah, just giving that a gentle push from the front, and it looks as if this is actually bonded or glued somehow. So I'm just going to pop that keypad out. And as you can see here, this actually seems to be bonded in. Yeah. Apologies if that's just gone off screen there. I'm just trying to see what's going on with this. But what I'm doing here is using the blade of the knife, which is very, very thin. This craft knife, which I'm using in between. Yeah, that's actually sticky. I can feel the screen surround, which is the bit with the metal tangs, is actually sticky. So that's why that was tricky to remove. So when you get to that bit, and there's the screen, as you see. So when you get to that bit, do not, provided you've checked that everything is loose and free, you should be okay to move that away. As I say, that was just sticky because of the adhesive on this metal frame, which obviously is there to hold it in place, which makes sense, which is common in electronic components. Okay, right. So the next step is to get the new screen, put it back in, and then put everything back together. Before I seal the whole thing up, I'm going to put all the board and the battery and everything on and plug it all in and just make sure that the screen actually works, which it should do. And as you can see, it has a plastic cover, and we all know what that means. Whoa, there we go. Making sure I don't touch that front of the screen. I want to place that, and I'm going to place the top in first because it has a perfectly aligned straight edge lip, which is ideal for keeping that aligned. Oop. And that looks like it's perfect seating there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a little bit of tissue, soft cloth, or something similar, and just give this a wipe over with some isopropyl alcohol, because this has marks on from the bubble wrap where it was wrapped up. Isopropyl alcohol in its handy little squeeze bottle, and a drop on there, and just give that a wipe. The important thing being to not flood the panel, because you don't want this getting into places where it shouldn't. And the beauty, of course, of isopropyl alcohol being that it's it flashes off very, very rapidly indeed. Strangely, there's still a little mark on there. Hopefully that's not going to affect the whole thing once it's back together. Okay. Now I need to make sure that this volume rocker switch is seated correctly in there, because that's everything else is still connected to the board over here, but that one is loose, so I obviously don't want that coming out. And then I'm just going to kind of wiggle this into place before I do anything else to see if I can connect the battery and test that this will work. So I need to connect the screen, which is this push connector here, like so. and the battery into here like so. Oh. If it will go, there we go. And right, let's see. And that is looking good. That's the Kindle rebooted pretty much, and I can't scroll through anything at the moment because I've not got any of the other controls connected. So the buttons, for example, there's nothing connected just now because all the cables have been undone. But you can see that that's there, that's all working and doing what it should be doing, and it also appears that that little mark on the back of the LCD is not going to bleed through or affect the look of the thing. So fabulous. I'm really pleased with that. So flip that back over now. One little note here, on the cracked screen that you can see, there was a little plasticky rubber pad which was glued to the back of this here, and it's got an indent mark, which is obviously where this section over here, where my little finger is, was pressing in and holding that flat there, which presumably to stop it popping off. So I've very carefully, with a craft knife underneath there, peeled that away, and then I am going to pop this onto here so that it performs the same task and keeps it in place. One thing to mention before the reassembly, and an important, if you're watching this through before you go ahead with your disassembly, is during the removal of parts, I kind of removed all the bits that looked to me as if they needed to be removed before I was able to remove this to gain access to the screen. As it turns out, these three cables here, here and here do not need to be disconnected unless you're physically lifting this board off of this backing, which is not necessary. The Wi-Fi card unit, whatever the official name is, doesn't actually say on it, but there's the Wi-Fi unit. This doesn't need to be removed from the board, nor unplugged from the little antenna connection either, and the speaker connection likewise doesn't need to be unplugged unless you're physically removing the speaker unit at the top. So unless you're taking any of these parts from this backing plate right here, you don't actually need to unplug any of those three connections or any of these. And likewise the screws, because the screws for this go into the backing plate. So that would save you a little bit of time. The only thing you do need to unplug is this ribbon cable here for the screen itself. So once you get to the inside bit, you need to remove all of the screws with the exception of these two for this Wi-Fi dongle unit thingamabob. And you need to unplug this, and then at that point you can wiggle this up and loose and wriggle the whole thing upwards like so to bring the buttons away. The only button that remains is the rocker switch for the plus minus volume control, so you need to make sure that that's properly seated back in when you seat this whole unit back into the base with the new screen. So hopefully that'll save you a minute or two with the disassembly and make the process much easier. Obviously, if you're needing to replace the speaker unit, replace the Wi-Fi unit or anything like that, then you will need to unscrew and remove those. And obviously, if you've watched the video so far, you know how to, because that's what we've gone ahead and done thinking that I needed to. But if you're just simply wanting to get the whole thing out to access the screen or the keypad, then you can leave all this attached. Feeding in the entire assembly at an angle into the bottom, sliding that down, and wiggle that down until these holes at the bottom line up. Your charging port, jack port and little microphone section should, oh, let me just check, actually the microphone bit there is a rubber cone, make sure that's not squashed like it just was there, so I'll wiggle that in again, and then that provides your little sound tunnel there and provides a seal. So you've got your rocker switch there, make sure that that's in place, and it is and works. Charging port, charging port, headset port 3.5mm jack plug, and then your rocker power switch with its spring still intact there. Slot it in at the top like so, and then we go ahead and replace all of these tiny black screws as they were removed. So we've got all the black headed screws back in place. The next step is to reinstall these little contact pins, which provide power to, rather, the light. I use a pair of tweezers to pop these two little cap pieces on that the battery screws into when we get to that bit. And then we're going to go ahead and refasten the other screws to hold in the speaker system, or the speaker bar, whatever you want to call it, on the top here. Before we pop the battery back in, don't forget to fold over this little tab, lining it up carefully. Just look down underneath until you're happy that's in line, and give it a gentle push, and it should easily snap into place and be fixed quite firmly. If it doesn't, double check that you've got that in the right place before you apply too much pressure, because obviously you don't want to be applying undue amounts of pressure. Last but not least, we pop the battery back in. Oops, pop it back in the right way around, it might help, like so. And you can tell which is the right way around because of course the contacts have to face down onto the circuit board. We drop one of the screws and retrieve that from the floor, and just tighten that down just enough so that it's nipped up. You don't need to clamp any of these screws down with any force. You're literally just nipping them up, because obviously when it comes to electronic components and the like, you do have to be careful that you don't apply too much force to a board and that kind of thing. Now before I go ahead and clip the back cover back on, we're going to just double check and make sure everything resets and boots up as it should. We have all of the relevant pages, and just having a quick check of the buttons. These work, and the ones on the left hand side work. Check the menu. We'll turn on the Wi-Fi so that it will do an auto sync. So the little four-way keypad should work as it does. Just make sure. Don't want to delete that. Goodness, no. But that works. Let's make sure the actual, yep. We will slide the power button, which snaps back snappily as it should. As you can see, we've got a complete screen there, which should now cycle back through its pre-installed screensavers, which it's doing nicely. There you go. The only thing left to do now is a quick check of the power charging port, the headphone jack and the volume plus minus buttons to make sure that they are doing what they should be doing. When it comes to putting the back on, I noticed this is actually I took it back off again because for some reason this bottom clip here, which is right above the power charging port, would not clip down if you just seat it right on. So what I found I had to do to get this to seat well was to fit this in at a bit of an angle and seat the bottom first and make sure that this specific one above the charging port is snapped down and over the catch, because it sits right above the charging port and it's so close to it that I think it has difficulty sort of moving down enough for the lower part of the plastic hole to snap under the clip. So just one to bear in mind for when you're refitting, and then the rest of the procedure is a simple case of just working your way up and around, and the rest, as you can see, snaps in with very little, if any, complaint, and that's the whole thing reassembled and looking nice and neat. So what I'm going to do just now is clip this into here. I'm going to switch on my Kindle and check that we've got a light, which we have, as you can see there. Fabulous. So there you go. I'm very pleased with this, and I now have a working Kindle again. I'm delighted that I don't have to start with a new one and reinstall my library and mess around. Hopefully this is useful to you, and thank you for watching, and bye for now, because I have a book to finish.